It's pinfalls and oh! Pratfalls. It's the outdated wrestling. Ow. Hey, everybody. My name is Bob Smith. You might remember me from way back when we did Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine. I worked with Craig Peters and Bill Apter and Stu Sachs and Andy Rodriguez and Dave Rosenbaum. On down the list it went. Hope everybody's doing good. We got a great guest returning to our show. It's Rick Del Santo from Connecticut. Wrestling guy who's been in the biz for quite a few years now, and he's going to tell you all about what's going on. So hang on for that. We won't waste your time on this one. We want to get right to the talking. We'll have our usual commercial announcement, and then meet again the engaging and knowledgeable Mr. Rick Del Santo. Give us a minute. We'll be right back, if you please. It's your one-stop shop. Great wrestling. WrestleCopia.com, where you'll find an armload of great wrestling podcasts. Some are weekly, some are not. All of them are great. Ray Russell brings WrestleCopia to you, including his own show, The Wrestling Memory Grenade. There's Regional Wrestling, The Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop, the Puro Wrestling Academy, Retro Wrestling Review with Gene Jackson, Dave Dynasty's Wrestling Nostalgia, Monday Warfare, Raw vs. Nitro, the Other Shit podcast, the Captain's Corner podcast, and much, much more. Great host, great shows. I guarantee you'll learn something every time you tune in to the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Where do you find all these shows? How about starting it this way? Just log on to WrestleCopia.com. There's nothing else like it anywhere. Hey, everybody, it's Bob Smith. You might remember me from my days back in the dark ages with Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine, and I also work for WCW and a mess of other wrestling magazines. And this is the Outdated Wrestling Hour. We're glad you're back. And I'm also glad we have our co-host at the ready here to hit us with facts, figures, everything about wrestling. It's Joe Puccio of GenerationXWire.com. Joe, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Bob. I'm happy to be here as always. I don't know how many facts or figures I'll have this week, but I'll give it my best.
Well, I have a figure, and it looks like a Whammo Super Bowl. Boom, boom. I'm sorry. Speaking of being a big fat slob, this show has been responsible for a major interwebs and podcast controversy, and I figured let's dig into this right now. On a couple of recent episodes, we have dug into, well, our favorite commercial from 1980s WWF Wrestling, the Carvel Company, and its legendary line of cakes made of ice cream, frosting, and other goodies. And we have both, Joe and I, have professed our love of the traditional take-home regular Carvel cake. Isn't that right, Joe?
That is correct. We've agreed that the original's the best. The regular ice cream cake with the crunchies, vanilla, chocolate, very basic, but the basic is the best. There's other good ones, but I think the original still beats them all.
Well, here's the deal. Now, the last time you and I talked, I think we talked about, I insisted there was a Halloween cake. Well, first of all, this all started with Cookie Puss and Fudgy the Whale, of which Mr. Puccio has had both at this point. I've had neither. Well, I have not availed myself of either Fudgy or Mr. Puss. And I think I've been missing out because I'm hearing and let me tell you something. My social media, both my direct messages and regular comments, have been lighting up about the Carvel conversations. I wouldn't be doing this if you people weren't interested in this, all right? But no, we started to go through this stuff, and I think it's hit a memory bell for a lot of y'all out there. And so we're gonna dig into the fact that Carvel right now, as we speak, may be bigger and better than ever when it comes to ice cream cakes. So Joe, straighten out your lederhosen because I think we're gonna shock you with the facts and figures we're about to bring you about Carvel cakes.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll get into it. And if I can just very quickly just recap, we talked about fudgy and cookie puss. I'll just give you a very quick recap on this. The reason why this started was because I had Carvel growing up. It was in the New York area, and we had it for birthdays and things like that. I never had a Fudgy the Whale or a Cookie Puss. And you always saw these cakes on the commercials. They would always, Tom Carvel with his strange way of speaking would always talk about these things. And for whatever reason, we just never got it. We always stuck with the original. So fast forward to many, many, many years later, a couple years ago, my sister, they brought over a Fudgy for my birthday. We were celebrating here at my house, and they knew I never had one, and they thought it would be funny to go to a Carvel and pick it up. So I had my first one. And then fast forward a year later, what did they do? They brought a Cookie Puss over for my birthday. And this was this past birthday that I just had. So now I can say I've tried both Fudgy and Cookie, and that sort of started this whole thing. And I know you brought up the, sorry, I forget the name, the Wiki the Witch. Was that it?
Here's the thing. If you go back to the 80s, and I want to thank the good people that, who put stuff on YouTube, because I was able to ascertain that my memory was absolutely correct. For October back in the day, for Halloween, they would introduce on the commercials Wiki the Witch. And by the way, some creative person on YouTube released a video with the Wiki the Witch commercial with an overdub of some witch from some horror movie over the top. So you see the Wiki the Witch face in words like, the blood shall run free down the roads of hell. And it's like, I'm like, is this Carvel? Then I realized it was a mishmash. It was Oz that they put together. But no, there was Wiki, and there was also, my friend Joe, Dumpy the Pumpkin. I am not making this up. It's in the same commercial.
I have never heard of Dumpy.
Dumpy the Pumpkin. And I will have you know, unfortunately, that both Wiki and Dumpy are now part of history. I don't know what they did wrong. Maybe they asked for too much money residuals or something. But Dumpy and Wiki are no longer part of the Carvel ice cream cake family. And I find it to be, well, quite sad.
Why would they? I mean, okay, Dumpy's a different story, but let's talk about Wiki first. I mean, why would they not want to have something perfect for Halloween time, for the fall season?
They do. Let me tell you there, kiddo. You're like me. We only know what we see on TV when it comes to Carvel. And I go into an actual Carvel maybe 3 times a year at best, right? And I always order the same thing. I'm so bored. What do you think I ordered at Carvel? Large cup of vanilla.
That's it?
That's it. Just the vanilla smooth ice cream, all bites. I think they have the freshest tasting vanilla ice cream.
No topping?
No topping. I just love their vanilla. I love the fresh taste of it. The same way I love the ice cream that I used to sell at Stewart's Bread and Butter Shops in upstate New York. But theirs is hard ice cream. For soft ice cream, I prefer Carvel #1. And given the demise of the TV commercials, I'm just remiss in what I've missed. There's so much stuff there now, and I want to go over some with you. I think you're going to fall out of your chair at the creativity of the current Carvel product.
Let's do it.
I want you to know they've just announced a new cake that's right up your alley. When we talked about the traditional regular Carvel cake that you can buy in supermarkets too, what's your favorite part of the cake? It's the crunchies, right? Yes.
Yeah.
They have a new cake called Crazy for Crunchies.
Oh.
In both chocolate and strawberry. And it serves 10 to 16. And on the Carvel website, it's described as this. Crunch, yeah. And it shows this chocolatey looking cake. It's got both chocolate and vanilla inside with the big crunchies. But it looks like the layer of crunchies is like the size of a Buick. All right. So I think you're really going to really like Crazy for Crunchies. This one's right up your alley.
So you're saying, I know you said chocolate vanilla. Are you saying that there's a strawberry option for this cake as well?
There's a strawberry option. That's right.
That sounds, see, I'm a big strawberry fan. Strawberry ice cream, strawberries in general. So I might actually opt for the strawberry version. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds awesome.
I think you're going to love it. Now, we all know that Fudgy is immortal. He's still being made. And they make the picture cakes too, where you bring them a photograph and they're able to duplicate. You see these all over the place where you can put somebody's picture on a
Yeah.
cake and it's edible and what have you. But they're also health conscious. They have something called Oatly Little Love, a non-dairy ice cream cake. I guess it's oat
Really?
made of oats, yes. But here's comes the interesting part. The unbelievable array. They blow the old Carvel to shame because they would just have these seasonal cakes. Here's a 3D butterfly cake. Looks like a
Wow.
giant butterfly with eyes on the front and little, oh my god, it says, "Get the flutters." Right? It's a they have a 3D ice cream cone cake that looks like a giant half of an ice cream cone.
Hmm.
They have a 3D race car cake with what appears to be chocolate sandwich cookies as the wheels. And it's blue and yellow and orange, and it looks just like a thing, right? They have a cake that looks like a baseball. These are new. These are new products. They have a cake that looks like a basketball, right? And here's birthday sprinkle cake. I think that's a traditional, that has more sprinkles on it. Now, for Easter, they have the bunny cake and Bunny Robert and Bunny Robin cakes. You can get either the boy or girl Robin for whatever reasons, right? Of course, you can get a cake with sayings on it, like "You did it," stuff like that. It's your birthday or whatever. Chocolate bunny cake, chocolate decadence heart cake looks like a big heart with a flower on it. Christmas tree cake looks like a Christmas tree, green Christmas tree, right? Oh, there they are. Cookie puss, right? But around St. Patrick's Day, you know what they have? The green cookie opus cake.
Of
And
course
he
they
has
do.
this green hat on for St. Patrick's Day. Oh, it's so good. They have a cake that looks like a colossal cupcake, right? It's called colossal cupcake cake. Here's something that looks like it's up my alley. Cookies and cream Carvel log cake. It looks like a
Mm.
big log. And there's cookies attached to the top of it sticking into the air, and there's chocolate and vanilla cake underneath. Oh, baby. They have a cake that looks like a silly emoji with his tongue hanging out, right? I don't know if these are all for display, but they'll make them for you. Here's a new one called Crunchy Munchy Monster. This little monster, he has horns like a devil, but they're made of course, of ice cream cones. And he's got a big smile, two little arms over the chocolate cake with different colored frosting, eyes, and mouth. And for some reason, he has a belly button. Here's the big dream cake, like class of 25 or whatever, things like that. They have an Easter cake that looks like an egg, a Father's Day cake. They also repositioned Budgie the Whale to a Father's Day whale cake. It says, "To a whale of a dad." It's the same cake, it just has a different saying on it.
Now, wait a minute. One thing I'm curious about here, and while you're talking, I just pulled this up very quickly too, and I'm just kind of perusing these different cakes where there is it looks like there's 100 cakes on here. As we know, Carvels are generally not that large. I mean, they're fairly small places. Now, are these cakes basically you have to order them ahead of time? I mean, how does this work? Because back in the day, you would just walk into a Carvel and you'd be able to pick up a cake.
Oh,
I
no,
mean,
you
these
order
don't
you
seem like
order a cake. You order some of these. Now, I know that they have fudgies waiting for you. I know Cookie
right. Maybe
Puss
the old standards are there.
I know Cookie Puss is there, and he'd have to be. He's practically the mayor of Carvel Town. And I think that a lot of the others, like these specialty new cakes, you walk in, you point it. They probably have a book there. They show you, do you want this one, you want that one, and then you order it, and then
You
a
order it.
couple days
Yeah,
go by, you come back and pick it up.
that
Because
makes
these
sense.
things ain't cheap. They cost. I'm not saying they're expensive. I'm just saying it's ice cream. We all know how much ice cream costs. So, and here's one from the day I forgot about. I guess this was for Valentine's Day. Hug Me the Bear. A huggable, edible, crunchy bear. So Hug Me is from back in the day. I remember
Okay.
Hug Me the Bear. But
Okay.
as you should see, this page goes on and on and on with different
You
delicacies.
know,
And here's one from the day too. Nutty the Ghost.
okay.
It's a round cake with a ghost on the top. He appears to be doing the Macarena, and he's surrounded by those crunchies on the outside and a chocolate frosting on the top. And its description is a very friendly cake. Oh man.
Can I point out one that literally just struck my fancy over here?
Okay.
And this is right up my alley because I think we've even spoken about this before. I'm a peanut butter fiend. I love peanut butter on things. There's a peanut butter Oreo cake. It says scoop some peanut butter onto your spoon. Serves 8 to 10. That sounds decadent. That sounds like that's got to be I'm gonna have next time I'm out, I'm gonna have to order one of these.
There you go. There you go. And also from the day Tom the turkey for Thanksgiving.
That I remember.
And folks, there are so many cakes. I can't read them all. We would be here an hour and 90 minutes. I'm telling you, it is amazing the variety of the Carvel cakes now. I got to hand it to them. I don't know if they advertise them on TV. I wish they did with Tom's voice, of course, but this is phenomenal what they. So I would tell you, go to carvel.com/cakes. It's Joe, you're looking at it too. Are you amazed as I am?
I had no idea that they expanded like this. I mean, this puts the cakes back in the 80s to shame. Let me ask you a question. I know this is a big shocker, but I was talking Carvel with my buddy and writer for Generation X Wire, JC Correa, recently, and he mentioned that last summer he went into a Carvel and he found that they were offering a limited time, seasonal only pumpkin soft serve ice cream. Now, I had never heard of this before. I had never, tried this. He says that he tried it and he says it might be his favorite ice cream that he's ever had. He said this is how delicious it was. Now, I don't know if this is still available or maybe it's just offered in the fall. Maybe it was a limited time thing. I don't know. But I want to ask you, have you ever heard of this? Have you ever tried this at Carvel? Or what's your take on the pumpkin soft serve ice cream?
I believe I've heard of it, but I wouldn't try it on a dare because I think pumpkins are for carving, not eating. I'm not a pumpkin fan in any way. I don't like the texture, flavor, or anything. I don't even like pumpkin pie. I don't. I'm not a fan.
You don't even like pumpkin bread?
No, are you kidding? I know we all have our likes and dislikes. A pumpkin is one of my dislikes, along with smelts I don't like. Sweetbreads I don't want to eat. Fatback, no, too greasy. There's a lot of foods that I go, no, not for me. I'm not a big fan of squash, but I'll eat zucchini. So it's like I'm just strange. I'm a strange picky eater. Beets I will deal with. Borscht, no.
Beets are the one I am a vegetable fan, but beets are one vegetable I draw the line at. I can't stand the way they look. I can't stand their I can't stand how they leave that sort of purple
juice
all over the place, and there's nothing appealing about them. So that beets, I draw the line. But other than that, I pretty much will. I love cauliflower, love broccoli, spinach, and Brussels sprouts. Even I like Brussels sprouts, but beets, no.
Now you may be asking, folks, what does all this food talk have to do with wrestling? Absolutely nothing, with the exception of there are some arenas around the country that do have Carvel as part of the restaurants that you can go to. You walk around the perimeter of a stadium or something like that, and they'll have a Carvel. For instance, Citi Field has Carvel, I believe. Wait a minute. I think they do. I know one of the ballparks I go to has Carvel, real Carvel. But I don't think you can get Dumpy the Pumpkin there, unfortunately. So you're going to have to get a cup or a sundae or a flying saucer, but I don't think they have the full-on Carvel menu at a ball game.
Yes.
So, but in any event, wrestling fans, I hope we have helped enlighten and entertain you about the controversy behind the long ago Carvel ads and the fact that Dumpy and Wiki are no longer with us. I'm kind of verklempt just talking about it because it's such a piece of my growing up time. And well, it all brings us back to Channel 9 for us East Coasters at midnight. And Carvel was a regular advertiser on wrestling. They were. I know they were. I remember seeing them. Once in a while, you get Coco Goya with Hermione Gingold, which were those ads that had to be seen to be believed in the 80s.
Yeah.
They had Meineke Muffler.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Locally produced Meineke Muffler ad.
Yeah.
And they always had the commercial with the guy. There was a figure that showed up. You saw the figure, guy wearing a coat walking toward a house, right? You East Coasters are going to remember this. At least anybody ever watched Channel 9. He's walking toward a house. On the back of the guy's jacket, it says high oil heat bills or high oil heat costs, high heating costs or something like that. It says that. A guy comes to the door, throws a wad of cash at him and goes, "Here, take all of my money." I don't remember the company. It's not even important. All I know is it's one of the funniest ads I've ever seen in my life. The guy would just fling a stack of, it looked like a wad of $100 bill. Here, take all of my money.
Right. I don't remember that. I wanna look that up. I wanna try to find
Oh,
some of
I
these
still
old
got old
commercials.
VHS tapes. Lenny's Clam Bar. Do you remember Lenny's Clam Bar? And I think here in Queens, they used to advertise in the wrestling, I believe. Pretty
Not
sure.
sure. Where was that, like, in Howard Beach or something?
Yeah, yeah, out that way, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
And
yeah,
they would interview, "What do you like about the salad bar?" "I don't like the chicken wings."
yeah.
Some guy goes, "Egg salad." I'm like, "What are you doing eating egg salad at a salad bar?" But that's just a whole nother ball. But no, I used to love the local flavor of the local advertisers on the wrestling show. It was
I
75% local ads.
I know you do as well. I still have all my VHS tapes when I used to record off television, those shows, like, let's say I would record the old Channel 9 shows. So that means I still have the old commercials.
Mhm.
Only problem at this point is I do not have a means of watching them, since I don't have a VCR, but I would love to just, go through my old cassettes, videotapes and watch those. I
Well,
gotta get a VCR.
well, here's the thing. I do have a working VCR, and I also have, this is what a lazy old man I am. I have a VCR, and I have the equipment to turn VHS tapes into
Yeah,
digital files,
digital,
MP3s or whatever they call them. Problem? Here's the problem when doing the transfers. You
real
do
time.
them at the speed of the VHS. It's not like today where you take a file, shove it into another place, and it's there.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to record something that's 2 hours long and change it onto a digital file, it takes 2 hours every time you do it. I don't know if I have enough time left as a human being to do 3 of them. I mean, it's like
No, I know,
it
I
takes
know.
forever, and there's so much stuff. I have myself on television from the wrestling days, stuck on a VHS tape somewhere. I have all kinds of, personal stuff that I really should dub, and I wanna do that. Maybe when I do retire, I will get to working on that stuff. Why not? But I don't want to have the memory and then end up in the hospital the next day. It's like you know, I acquiesce to age. No, I'm really looking ahead. I mean, I'm not going to be this healthy and hale and hearty. Who knows how much longer? So I may do it. I may not. It just takes too long. But the beauty part is I can watch this through my computer. I can watch these tapes on the computer. Like the card is part of this one computer. You flick it on, and you can literally play the tapes and watch them on the screen of your computer. You can hear the sound too. So I still have a VHS in that regard. I don't have the VHS hooked to the TV. I only have it hooked to this card, this device. So
Oh,
I hope
okay. So you're not watching. You're not using the VCR.
not at all.
You're not actually using a VCR and watching it on television
No, I'm watching it on the computer.
on the computer. Gotcha.
Yeah, it allows you to watch on through the software
Now,
that comes with the device on the computer.
now let me ask you though, if somebody wants to buy a VCR in 2025, where do they buy it?
Doesn't
You
Amazon
can't
have
buy.
VCRs?
I got to look that up because I don't believe you can go anywhere, right? You can't go to a Best Buy and get a VCR now.
Absolutely not. I haven't seen a VHR and if they are, they're cheap Chinese combo machines.
Right,
Like
right.
one part will be a DVD player, the other part will be the VCR part.
I wonder if
Um,
Amazon has actual new VCRs.
there's a topic for a future show for all of us old because I still have I don't know what to do with them. I just threw out a whole mess of videotapes and I wanted to cry because I spent years dubbing this stuff and I just realized I'm never going to look at this. I'm never going to look at that. It was like movie tapes, a VHS copy of Clueless. I'm never gonna look at this again, so I threw it out because you can watch it streaming anywhere you want. I don't need a VHS copy of Clueless now, so it's like, so
Right.
what do you do? I mean, it's a quandary. I just wish I had more free time, and maybe I should just seek out the stuff I really want to put on there. Like I need to find the Coco Goya commercial of Hermione Gingold dancing with the conga line, which is one of the most unintentionally funny things you will. No, it's intentionally funny, and it is funny. I want to find a Hulk Hogan interview from '81 that will curl your toes. That's all I'm gonna say. I know I have it on the
And
tape. It will curl your toe. And other wrestling stuff from the past that I can just put into chunks. But I won't put them on YouTube because I think it's a copyright violation. It's just I'm not gonna go that far. But for me to have them
right.
personally would mean more than that. And, IWCW, I interviewed Greg Valentine, Joe McHugh, Tony Atlas a few times. It was those are memories that I have in a closet that I never look at. And I really love to look at those things. I'm such a fool. I never had any ego about anything I ever did. Hey, Bob, I saw somebody chased me out of a bank once. A teller. I'm in Rockville Center when I was with the magazines. I had just been on IWCCW TV interviewing Greg Valentine. The teller sees me in the bank. I make my transaction. I leave. He runs into the parking lot. I saw you on TV on Saturday. I said, you did? Yeah, you were talking to Greg. I didn't even know it was on. Because, IWCCW locally, you never knew when it was on. It was on sometime. And I went, wow, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. He said, what do you do? I said, you didn't know PWI is in the same town that we're in? No. I said, we're over on Maple Avenue over there. So we got into a nice conversation about it. But, when I was doing it, I don't know how to put it. I took my job seriously, but I didn't think it had any impact on other people. 35 years later, I realized it did.
Absolutely.
It did. It had value. That's the one thing that I find very gratifying is like when Bill Apter shows up somewhere or, there's an interview with Stu Sachs or somebody on some website somewhere all these years later, people remember those times. And the fact that people remember those times of all the things I've ever done, even more so than my music career, I think it's very gratifying. People write me out of blue. I used to read your Steel Cage column in Peter in a school bus when I was going to school or this or that. That knocked me down with a feather, man. That's to have some kind of value in other people's lives is a very nice thing. And I'm very happy that I was able to entertain other people. I don't know how else to put it.
Oh, you should be. I mean, you should be happy about that. And you certainly did have an impact. I mean, these were, whether you grew up on this stuff or, whether it was your music career, people listened to you there. It certainly would make you feel good. I completely understand that. To have an impact on somebody, whatever that impact was, it means something. Absolutely. Why would it not?
The stuff I've done. I was on the House of Blues radio hour twice being interviewed by Dan Aykroyd as Elwood Blues. Twice. He brought me back a second time. And I'm like, this stuff don't happen to mere mortals, Jack. I mean, it means that what you've done has reached a certain level of professionalism, and that's all I ever strive for in any work I've ever done. I want to be as good as I can in any job I've had. And the fact that, these little moments of, I guess, affirmation, so to speak,
right,
makes it all worthwhile. More than the money, more than the fact that people know who I am. I pleased somebody. I made somebody smile out there somewhere. That means a lot. That's why I'm doing the show. And that's why the whole theme of this show is really, unlike a shoot show or a show with a lot of bad language or a show with a lot of griping about this or how horrible this is. I want this to be a place people can turn to kick your feet off and just let loose for a while, and remember the same stuff that we did.
I have the exact same mentality with Generation X Wire.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the interviews I do, I find sometimes there's a little initial resistance only because there might be something that somebody doesn't want to talk about, or maybe they had something that they were known for that maybe they didn't really want to discuss, or whatever the case is. And I always assure them, look, I'm not out to get clicks because, it's going to be an interview where I'm asking you about this or asking you about that. It's a feel good place. It's basically to celebrate that person, whether it's an interview or it's a movie, whatever it is. It's just looking to look back and celebrate things that we grew up on, that we loved, and we want to reminisce about, we want to talk about. So it's sort of the equivalent. I feel the exact same way.
There's just something about your formative years, from a baby into a toddler, into a 10-year-old, into a teenager, into an adult. You remember these phases in your life as you go along. And there are things that you did in entertainment and watched as entertainment that inform you, and you never forget them when you first see them. 1970, my first wrestling show. 1980, my first live event, whatever it was, they never leave you. They always stick with you. Mm-hmm. And I don't care who you are, what you like. The music and entertainment you liked when you were younger will always be your favorite entertainment. You may find new stuff now that you really love. There's plenty of TV shows and movies that I've seen that knock me out. I just saw a Broadway show. It was one of the best things I ever saw. But do I like it better than the stuff I saw when I saw my first Broadway show? No. It's that introduction to things that always grabs you. Do you agree with that, or am I full of beans?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. It's like that with anything that you see. There's that period in your life when you first experience something, the stuff you grew up with, the stuff that you first loved, that's always going to have a nostalgic factor, and that's always going to be what you feel is always the best of something. Oh, it's never as good as that. It's never, it's just the way it is, I think, for everybody. Maybe quality of things. We might look at things a certain way, and maybe the quality might be better nowadays in certain facets. From an individual's point of view, I feel that always applies. You're always looking at something a certain way from what you grew up with, from what the way you first experienced it. Because, like you said, it was your first experience. It was how you were introduced to something, and that's always going to hold a special place in that person's heart.
My first wrestling show I ever watched was either in 70 or 71, and it was the NWF with a bunch of Johnny Powers and the Sheik and whoever. One of the stars there was Tex McKenzie, and then one day the show went off. The promotion stopped promoting in Albany, New York. So I'm in, what was the name of that store? There's a candy and toy store on Main Street in Catskill. And I go in there, and they used to have a nice magazine rack, and they had all the wrestling magazines. And I looked up, and I had a 50 cent a week allowance. Oh, West Wrestling World. I grab it, and there's Tex McKenzie on the cover. Oh, boy. There wasn't even wrestling on TV at this point. And I buy this magazine. It was I remember like getting emotional. I remember it was like yesterday. And I grabbed this magazine. It had a brownish cover, and he was battling the Sheik on the cover. And it was all of my 50-cent allowance, and I didn't care. I took it home, enjoyed every page.
There you go.
I wanted to keep up on wrestling, even though there was no show in my area, no TV show. And thankfully, within 9 months or so, the WWF or the Triple WF came on that same station the old show was on at the same time. But that vibe, that feeling is what I'm trying to impart on people. Life can be hard. Life in America these days is kind of weird. I say embrace your past, embrace the good things. Life isn't all bad. And if you've got the blues out there, try to remember some of the cool stuff you did when you were younger, You were talking to me earlier about, a little problem you're having. How much do you feel better now than when we first started this conversation today? Do you feel better now, a little bit happier? Because we're going back and looking back at the stuff that was cool when we were kids.
No, you're absolutely right. It definitely helps to look back, helps to reminisce about these great times. And it helps you forget about things too.
Yep.
You want to step away from the real world. Maybe not even the stuff that's going on in your own lives, but stuff that's going on in the world. That's not always pleasant these days. So it's it definitely helps for sure.
Well, folks, from me and Fudgy here, that's the name he put on his studio today. Every day he tries to get me to laugh with a fake name. Instead of putting Joe in the box in our studio, he puts Fudgy today.
I'm in a Fudgy kind of mood,
what?
But
you may be an excellent writer. You may be a first-rate editor, but you know what? You're never going to be Fudgy in my heart, Jack. Fudgy with those crunchies, man. I'm telling you. And you're right. I don't like Fudgy as well as the other cakes, but there's no such thing as a bad Carvel cake. There's just some we like better than others. I like the ones that have that amalgam of flavors. Like you say, the traditional, when you can get this in supermarkets, the Carvel cake, the round, probably 6-inch cake, and it's got maybe even 4 inches, and you cut into it. It's the 2 different flavors of ice cream. You take it out, you let it temper, and it's got that nice frosting on the top, and then the ice cream starts to melt just a little bit. And when you hit them crunchies in the middle of that slice, you realize how life can be really good.
That's right. It makes everything better.
Yeah. So I want to personally, and I'm serious, thank you, Carvel. I've never had a bad Carvel product in my life. They've always been the highest quality ice cream, and it's always a treat. And I know that things aren't as cheap as they used to be. And ice cream, you get sticker shock these days. You walk into a Carvel, you see a cone is 5 and change or something. And it's kind of sticker shockery. But I'll tell you what, if you got little kids, you give them an ice cream for the first time, it's one of the greatest moments of your life. Watching that kid discover ice cream, right?
And go to Carvel on Wednesdays. They still do this. I'm sure they do it everywhere, but they do buy one, get one free on Wednesdays in Carvel. You can buy a sundae, whatever you want, you get one free.
Yes, it's Wednesday or Sunday at Carvel. A tremendous deal.
And that, let me just say, I know you said your favorite, if you had to pick one favorite Carvel treat, it's the plain, just vanilla soft serve.
No. I
thought that was your go-to.
Oh, I love the gooky, sticky, thick $7, $8 Carvel Lanch, or I love the flying saucer when it's fresh.
I know you like the flying saucer.
And a Carvel cake knocks them all out of the park, though, for me. My favorite thing is the Carvel cake, but knocks them out of the park.
See, if I had to pick my one favorite Carvel treat, if I could pick one thing that I could eat and not, get any calories, nothing, it would be a soft serve sundae with the hot peanut butter sauce, rainbow sprinkles, whipped cream, and a cherry. There you go. I'm telling you about
I've
this is, and as
never.
far as the type of ice cream, it could be vanilla, it could be pistachio. Pistachio is such an underrated ice cream. So, I'm talking soft serve pistachio with peanut butter sauce, sprinkles, whipped cream, and a cherry. There you go. That's my top.
Folks, get the most out of life. That's what I have to tell you. And it sounds like Mr. Puccio, we're going to have to do a quadruple and go to a Carvel. You know that? We're going to have to all go out together and go to Carvel.
They need to be a sponsor.
They do. Carvel, if you're within the sound of my voice, damn it, I love you so much. You can advertise for free if you want. How's that sound? I will put your spots, your radio spots on the air for free to let the free world know about the magic of Carvel.
That's
Fudgy
right.
the Whale, Wiki the Witch,
Mr. Puss.
Mr. Cookie Puss. All right, we better get out of here before I can hear the cell phone switching off around our country right now as we spend all this time on dairy delights. And by the way, they call them novelties, right? But did ice cream novelties, right?
Oh, right.
Novelty. They call them novelties. But for some reason, now I'm wearing an Omega watch, right? And I'm pointing at it to Joe to see it. This is an Omega watch. The different varieties of watches in Swiss watchmaking are also called novelties. And I'm like, no, a novelty is like a fudgesicle. I can't get used to the watch industry calling a $5,000 watch a novelty.
Huh.
Do you agree?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I
Yeah.
never thought about that.
No,
Yeah.
it's true. Like when you go, which of our novelties are you interested in? Which simply means in watch jargon, different watch
Different type.
styles that we have, right?
Yeah.
But no, they call them novelties. I'm like, I love watches, but I'm not big on that designation. Something that costs you that much money should be known as a burden.
Yeah.
Which burden would you like to I guess to take out of the case for you?
Man, I haven't worn a watch in probably like 15 years.
Are you one of those people who's down on watches, doesn't like the way they
I'm not
feel,
so much
or
down
are you
on
just
them.
don't want to spend any money on it?
No, it has nothing to do with either. I don't know. I just stopped. I just felt like it wasn't really useful. I guess once you started using a cell phone, it's like you just look at your phone for the time. So I don't know. I just felt like it's one of those things that it's one less thing for me to to put on in the morning. I don't know. Like I just feel like it's not really that useful anymore. I don't know.
Philistine.
There you go.
Anyway, thank you, Joe. It's been a blast. I hope you had a nice time talking to us. Point us toward your website again and tell the fine folk out there how to get to it.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah. GenerationXWire.com. The best of Generation X, whether it's movies, music, wrestling, of course. We do it all, something for everybody. As of we're recording this, we just did we have a great review of the Pink Floyd live concert in Italy from the 70s that was done in front of no audience. That was just restored. It got a 4K restoration that JC Correa just did a great review of. The sounds of Pink Floyd at Pompeii. We did a article on Allison Smith, Kate and Allie and the West Wing, a Star Wars retrospective, one on Ludovic Vachon, something on Glengarry Glen Ross, the new Mission Impossible movie coming out, and we have a lot more coming up in the weeks to come. So yeah, I mean, please check it out. We try to get a little mix of everything. So we try to keep it eclectic, which I think we've done a decent job at. There's more to come this year.
A concert with no audience where Terry Funk and Jerry Lawler there?
That's right.
Yeah.
We can always bring it back to wrestling, right?
Absolutely. It all comes back to wrestling.
It all comes back to pro wrestling.
It's Joe Puccio, everybody. Thank you for being here. And here comes our guest, Rick Del Santo. In a matter of just a few seconds, if you go anywhere, get yourself some Carvel and come back and dole it out, baby, while we talk wrestling. We'll be right back. One of the best things about doing these podcasts in the wrestling world, particularly nostalgia type, is you get to meet some groovy people, man. And I mean groovy because we all use that word. We were old enough to use the word groovy when we were children. Anyway, we have a groovy cat here. He is a major force in the independent wrestling scene in the state of Connecticut. He is a historian. He is a multiple podcaster, and he's doing so many things I can't keep track of him. I just had a very enjoyable appearance on his podcast, and now he's back for his fourth appearance here on the Outdated Wrestling Hour. I think it's 4. Am I right?
Yep.
It's Rick Del Santo. Rick, thanks for coming back. It's good to see you.
It's always great to be here, Bob. Thanks. Thank you for coming back on my show. I'm really looking forward to that one coming out. It was a lot of fun, that conversation.
I don't know why, but all of my shows have a tendency to ramble on from one subject matter to the next. And by the time the show is over, we're not talking about wrestling at all. It just works out that way. I hope I didn't veer too far off the ship because it's like, I remember we talked at the end about, I was at the doctor this morning. We were talking about that. So
it's always good to mix it up a little bit, and not necessarily, you can get off the subject matter because it's fun. You know what I mean? To talk about things that happen in your life and in your day. And then whether it be, a doctor's visit or what have you.
Yes. You know something? I think the best podcasts are like eavesdropping on somebody's conversation. Because you know what? The best podcasts forget they're podcasting and they start getting into the person that they're talking to and listening to them. And next thing you know, they'll talk about anything. Have you ever had a bosun's mate sandwich? And the other guy goes, "What's a bosun's mate sandwich?" Well, the first person will say, "It's Dairy Queen's idea of a filet o fish." And the second person will say, "I never heard of a bosun's mate sandwich." And the first person will say, "That's because they stopped making them in 1979. There's my example of getting off track. And now everybody knows what a bosun's mate sandwich is. See, we have to talk about fast food here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think we had a conversation about fast food on my show with the A&W.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. We're talking about A&W, and Joe Puccio and myself on this show have a tendency to go over the history of Carvel cakes. Not just Carvel, but the Carvel cakes. And he had recently had his first cookie puss. Can you believe it?
That's unbelievable because I remember those. I remember a lot of that stuff. The TV commercials from the 1980s, and I worked in a grocery store for a number of years, so I got to see a lot of these things.
Well, you're an East Coast guy. You saw Carvel on wrestling, and they always advertised on the Channel 9 show, I think.
Yeah.
So what's new? Tell us what's going on with the wrestling group that you're working with. Let's just talk about you for a while. The wrestling group you're working with is a shockingly high-quality independent federation. I want people to discover it. Tell us what you're doing.
Well, there's Coliseum Pro Wrestling, and it's based out of, we run shows in West Haven, Connecticut. And we have a lot of fun. There's a lot of the guys that are out of Massachusetts and New York and Connecticut that work there. So we're looking forward to the new show. It's being rescheduled because it was supposed to take place in June. It's being pushed off for a little bit as there's some some issues, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And I really want people to go to the Coliseum Pro Wrestling social media, particularly the Facebook or the Instagram, and check it out. You can go to YouTube. You can hear my lovely voice commentating over the action. And there is a weekly TV series that we upload to the YouTube channel. So it's a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun. I love commentating. I do. I picked up a couple other groups recently, and it's just, there's something about it. I just love sitting in the booth and calling the action. And I've gotten way better. People have compared me to saying that I didn't have much emotion in the beginning. Sort of like when I did raise my voice, I was kind of like Lance Russell in a way. It wasn't very enthusiastic sounding. So I tried to add a little bit more enthusiasm, and I think I'm doing pretty good at it.
There you go. And you know what? I want to give you a plaudit here. When you guys out there listening, watch these clips, right, on YouTube, you will be surprised at how good the action is. Do you agree with me, Rick? You got some guys that can work in your group.
Yeah. I mean, we've had guys from our area, such as in our earlier shows, current WWE ID prospect Brad Baylor has been on the earliest shows, who's a phenomenal performer. I just got a chance to work with him for another show, Paradise Alley Pro Wrestling, and which is Paul Roma and Mario Mancini's company. And Brad is a student of the school. And I got to commentate for a couple of the last shows that they've put on. I think they put on a big show last year that I was on the live broadcast, which was a YouTube broadcast. And last week or the week before, we were in another show, which I was brought back. They don't record a lot of their shows. Every so often they'll do like a live broadcast for the biggest ones.
How often is a new show posted?
With them, a lot of it's just like fan cam footage. They don't record a lot of their shows, but they'll do, and now they're starting to run smaller shows, and they're bringing in a camera crew for the smaller shows, which is my son got to work his first night in the business, I guess you can say, as a cameraman because we needed an extra hand. And he's up here visiting from Ohio, and they look at him. They said, "Hey, Frank, you want to do this?" He's like, "Yeah, sure." So, and I can't wait to see that video because it should be very interesting and a lot of fun. That he's 16 years old. They're about to be 16 years old. So he got to he's been around for quite some time going to shows with me, and he knows like everybody in the area. So to have him be a part of it was, for me, was very exciting. And he always helps with the ring crew and stuff like that as well when he's in town.
Excellent. Keeping the family, right?
Yeah.
That's great. If you'd be so kind, as far as the Coliseum part, is there a website, just given the whole Cook's tour and how they can get involved with that?
No website. There is, like I said, Facebook and Instagram. They're on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it these days. But the best place, I think, is Instagram and Facebook. And as they do, they'll do some exclusive promos and advertisements and stuff like that to try to gear up and head people to the shows. And it's working. People are paying attention. We're growing with every show. I think we just celebrated our 4-year anniversary with the last show. And it was pretty exciting to say that we've been doing this for 4 years, I think.
That's it's like an eternity for an indie group. That's great. And
right.
I want to congratulate you for that. And I will say again, when you guys look on the YouTube, the action's really good and it looks good. And I think you got a bunch of future, I don't want to call them stars, but you may have some real future working pros working right there.
Yeah, like I said, some of the earlier shows had current WWE ID talent prospect Brad Baylor. This guy Lucas Chase, who's made AEW appearances, trained under Dustin Rhodes, and I cannot stress the amount of talent locally from Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New York that comes in. Guys like Jay Vara, who I believe trained under Johnny Rods. There's a lot of like Johnny Rods students that would come in. PJ Savage, guys that would trained under Slick Wagner Brown, Paul and Mario, like I just mentioned them, guys that were trained under there. So, the talent is definitely there, and it's very exciting to see some of these young, hungry guys that I get to work with.
And tell me about the live events. Are they at a usual place? And where can people find tickets for those and so on and so forth? And I understand it's just tickets at the door, right?
Yeah, that's like most places. I don't think we've ever sold any in advance. It is at the Elks Lodge, West Haven, Connecticut. I'm not sure how familiar you are with West Haven, Connecticut. It's like 10 minutes from New Haven, which I know you do know that place. And it's an Elks Lodge. It's very small. We fit about 100, 150 people in the building. So it's not like a gigantic show, but it's close, it's intimate, it's affordable for the family. There's meet and greets beforehand with everybody, and it's just a lot of fun, and I gotta say that the guys that are doing the booking, the guys doing, I guess, preparing, writing, booking the shows, it's getting better and better, and the stories are there, and it's just so much fun to watch.
Very cool. And from what I'm picking up on, if you got a couple kids, you can bring them, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a family-friendly event. We'll put it that way.
Yes, it's definitely a family-friendly. Everybody's warned beforehand, no swearing. So, no, because there is always kids. We have some guys that come in there that are regulars, like kids that come in there. And sometimes there's the local football team, kids football team from the town that one of the guys from the Elks coaches, he'll bring in the whole team for the show. And I got to tell you, man, those kids watching this stuff are so excited. It's great. Reminds me of being a kid watching a wrestling event when the little kids will just go crazy. So it's a lot of fun. Just a lot of fun.
I've got to make it out there. I am one of, when I just say I'm going to contact you when the dates jive. I may even bring Puccio, because Puccio and I want to go on a trip around the East Coast to various indie organizations. We want to go see Creative Pro in Long Island, and we want to check out a few of the indie organizations, because right now based on what I'm seeing and hearing, indies are starting to draw now. I mean, it's kind of like a new generation of indies that are starting to catch favor with a lot of wrestling fans, not for the least of which you can afford to go, right? You can afford a ticket.
But since the pandemic, independent wrestling has just exploded, if you will. There's plenty of great groups just here in the state, in Connecticut. I think now, when I last counted, I think there's something like 8 different companies in the state, which to me, Connecticut's not a gigantic state. So, to have 8 companies in the state, 8 promotions in the state, to me, that's kind of awesome, and they not all of them use the same talent. There's new companies, kind of like a couple new ones popped up in the last year that have been running some decent shows. But, I stick with my, with some of these companies that I work for, that, I do commentary for a couple of them. And it's just, there's somebody that just wants to make a difference in the community. And it just ends up being pretty awesome. Some of them might not have the same impact, but some of them really do have really just an awesome impact on the wrestling community in the state of Connecticut. And independent wrestling, like you said, it's bigger than it's ever been. There's tons of streaming networks just for independent wrestling. A lot of these companies can just put their stuff up on YouTube, which to me, YouTube has become one of the most important tools for professional wrestling, independent wrestling, I don't know, since the pandemic, really.
I would tend to agree with that wholeheartedly. I think you nailed it right there with that last comment. I think the pandemic opened up possibilities for the indies, and it's been kind of a golden age ever since. Now, in addition to your announcing proclivities and your behind the scenes work, you also have a podcast. Tell us about the podcast. And you had taken a hiatus for quite a while from podcasting. Now you're back with both guns blazing. Tell us all about it.
I did take a hiatus. I kind of got a little, I guess, I don't know, overwhelmed after doing it since 2019. But then I decided, it's like, man, I miss this. I was involved in radio for a very long time, community radio and stuff like that, and I absolutely loved it. That's why I started a podcast, and I didn't really expect to start a wrestling podcast. I intended to do a music-themed podcast, but it was something happened that made me decide to go to wrestling, and it was Paul Roma, really. I just ran into him at a gas station one morning. He invited me to one of his shows, in which I went. And I said, man, I really miss professional wrestling. I think I had not watched or been to a show in about 3 or 4 years. So, and then I just had so much fun. Podcasted from 2019 to, I think I shut down December 2024. I just started up again in probably the springtime. I decided to take a little break. And now, I kind of started another podcast. I do a couple different ones regarding, I just started one, Main Event Memories, which is just me talking about classic professional wrestling and just professional wrestling of days gone by. I want to share stories of the past, things that I just find awesome, which, I've got some really good shows coming up that I've booked, and some that I'm working on, and I can announce some of them. I just announced one on the show that we just did I've got WWE Hall of Famer Tony Gurria coming up, 3-time WWF Tag Team Champion. So I'm very excited that I was able to confirm that guest, and I never thought I'd be able to get in touch with him so easily. Really, so it was it's kind of awesome. I'm really looking forward to having an episode with him.
So the name of the podcast again is
Main Event Memories.
Okay, and it's available in all the usual spots, right?
Yeah. Yep. And my YouTube, you just type in my name, Rick Del Santo, into YouTube. You'll see it come up. There's lots of great stuff coming up, and I've done 2 episodes so far. Third one, just recorded it, and it's going to be released on Tuesday. I'm just I'm having fun. I'm having more. I just think that I'm watching less and less modern wrestling, and just going back to the old school, that I love it, that I just I would like to sit there and talk about days gone by and keeping memories alive, keeping all the stories alive, that, getting them out there. And it's just, some of these people, it's not easy to hear these stories or find some people, but I'm always kind of searching, and, I don't want these stories to die and nobody ever hears them.
So basically, now you're in direct competition with me, and frankly, I resent it. Got him to
Never,
laugh. Okay,
never,
that's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. No, I
never.
listen. I say the more the merrier, and I'm glad that you're back. And I'm glad that you're going to focus on nostalgia and old times because you know what? We got to keep our voices going with this stuff.
Yeah,
And there aren't enough people of our age group, and I mean this, that are involved in big time pro wrestling. We need some people who will remind people. Like I say, I've been watching wrestling since 1977. And now, whether I'm an expert or not, it's up for others to say. I don't think I am. I'm just a really keen observer of things. And I'll say that I really think that today's promotion should look back at angles and stars and moments and championships and all sorts of things that happened in the last 70 or 80 years of professional wrestling because they might learn a technique or a psychology or a strategy that can help them with their promotions. You could bring back something that hasn't been done in 30, 40 years, even a hold or a maneuver. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
That will be
yeah.
fresh today that was old hat in the old days. Everything goes in cycles. And I really think that if there's a problem with today's wrestling, it always looks forward, but it doesn't look back nearly enough. Do you concur?
Absolutely, 100%. There's just, we're not seeing enough holds that we saw when we were growing up because everything and I don't want to talk bad about wrestling all the time, like modern wrestling. It's just not my niche. There's just not enough old school involved in it. There's not enough holds. It's like everything is, and you can tell. And I always, you'll see me tweet it out while watching some sort of wrestling event or maybe WWE event that AEW, whatever. It's just all choreographed BS, some of it. And when you could really, really, really tell when that's there, that it was all pre-planned the entire match. And it's just, to me, and we just discussed this on my show, that it was the element of surprise that kind of lures you in and sucks you into that television to watching professional wrestling.
Totally agree with you. So we are of a like mindset in that regard, it just thrills me because it's like you're way younger than I am, my friend. You're way.
I
Did you know how much younger you are than I am? We kind of I would like to think we kind of look like we're 5 years apart, but this guy is like eons younger than I am.
I'm only,
In fact, but there's you know what? There's faces on my coins that are eons younger than I am. It's ridiculous at this point, and I it amazes me how much older I is than all of my contemporaries. It's like I don't feel as old as I am, and I think that's a good thing. I hope it's a good thing. But I think the point I'm trying to make is seriously, there's a lot to learn from history. I mean, we
yes,
learned history in school. In fact, it was a required subject when we were in school, right, Rick? And I
yeah,
think that there's a lot of wrestling history that has floated by the wayside. The question is who will impart this on today's promoters and wrestlers? That's
yeah,
a good question because we talk about all the time. People say Tony Khan should get a new booker. Well, who is that going to be exactly? Who's left? Right?
yeah,
Good
yeah,
point. Right? I mean, Jerry Jarrett's gone.
yeah, yeah.
Crockett's are long gone. Kevin Sullivan is gone. Jim Cornette wouldn't do it even if you paid him $1 million probably at this point. Although he'd be my first choice. Al Snow, maybe. I mean, who's
I
out
think Al
there?
Snow's got Al Snow's got it. I think you know what I mean.
I
I
do
mean,
too. He's one of my heroes. He really is.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I do watch his product every now and again. The OVW product. It's not my favorite thing, but some things when they make sense, they really do make sense on his program. Sometimes they don't always, but he kind of has more of like an old school booking sense, really, with that running OVW currently.
I will say that the recent OVW that I've been seeing, he can turn anything into chicken salad. I don't want to say
Right,
the old colloquialism, but no, seriously, I've seen him take what looked like is going to be kind of a weak premise and work it until you're into it.
right,
That's the sign of a good booker. Like what's this guy talking about? Like it's usually a bad guy manager or something like that. And what's he talking about? What kind of bull is this? And then it hooks you, and then bang, you're into it.
right.
So no, I'm a big Al Snow booster. I think he's one of the great conduits, and from what I understand, an excellent trainer. Right at this point.
At this point, yeah, and there's always that meme that popped up after the wrestlers about deathmatch wrestling that every so often you'll see me share on my social media because we share the same opinion on deathmatch wrestling.
You know something? There's a topic for a future podcast. If you want to be involved with this, you may be. The
Sure.
topic would be listen to these people, and we can list 10 people who are still active on the current scene that are influential, though you may not know, like guys like Tom Pritchard,
Yeah.
right? Danny Davis is still floating around a little bit. There's some people who have been in the business for decades that should be listened to because they've been through it all, they've seen it all, they've been main eventers, and I think that you have to look toward the past to develop a future. I really do. I'm convinced because every time wrestling strays too far away from wrestling, it ain't wrestling.
I really do agree with you that there's a lot of, and we talked about it on my show that there's, with the whole Hammerstone bit that I literally just don't think there's a point where it just doesn't become wrestling, and it's just more so for shock and try to, wrestling has kind of strayed kind of far away at times, and to me it's very frustrating because I just, it's not the wrestling that I grew up with. I love watching, and that's why I go back because I love watching old school Mid Atlantic or World Class or AWA, stuff like that, because it's just like it's for the most part strictly wrestling. There's no BS, you know what I mean, and a lot of it.
How much of today's wrestling, particularly WWE, which has gone way downhill the last few months, but I'm not going to mention WrestleMania, I promise. But you'll have two wrestlers in the ring, and they each have a mic, and they're all talk. 11, 12 minutes goes by until you get the creamy insult, and the crowd goes woo, right? And I'm starting to think that WWE covets the great insult more than they covet a great match at this point.
They'd
What do you
rather
think of
have
that?
great promos sitting there for half an hour
Yeah.
talking, or their intros. Say, like I said, we won't go into WrestleMania. I know we both talked about our disappointment with the show. But do you realize that this is the only thing I'm going to mention about? But do you realize that all the introductions were like a half an hour each,
Yeah.
roughly? So mind you, by the end of it, like you're waiting for the next match to start, but you had to wait a half an hour for the intros. Of like, say Roman's intro, him walking to the ring like a slug, like very slowly, and there's nothing against him, like he's an outstanding performer, but it's just like it's frustrating when you're tuning in to watch wrestling and people are doing just certain things just because it's WrestleMania, it's a Super Bowl of wrestling. You know what I mean? It's the biggest night in the industry. It's just like, but they take a 30-minute walk to the ring, and it's so frustrating because you just want to watch the action. You know what I mean? And then there you are for 6 hours. The show ends up being 6 hours because of something like that. You know what I mean? And they have the stage. What is it? All the stage changes and what band is playing, or was it one of them was like a Barbie set, I believe, a Barbie house or whatever. It was just it's just too much and not enough actual wrestling. But they don't brand themselves as professional wrestling. They did for about 5 minutes 2 years ago, but then they went back to that.
Well, here's the thing too, and Brian R. Solomon pointed this out, and I hadn't even thought about it until he mentioned it on my show once, is that the introduction to every WWE star now starts with a large screen with their name emblazoned upon it or a artistic motif, followed by them entering. And many of them have theme songs. So when like Rhea Ripley's would stamp her feet and then fireworks will go off. So even the entrances are wildly choreographed and they take a long time.
Right.
There's no such thing as just, run to the ring and get in and we'll start the match ding, ding, ding. Whereas when you and I were growing up, if you remember Joe Puccio era, when you came back from a commercial break, the wrestlers were already in the ring, mind you. He would make his ring announcements and then ding, 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 off to the races you went. That's a big difference. I mean, it's a big difference between the way wrestling was presented in my day and the way it's presented now. And there's a lot of sizzling going on, but sometimes it takes you a long time to get your first fork into that steak, if you know what I mean.
It was strictly wrestling for the most part. And, and then there'd be like between match interviews, and then you'd see the announcers discuss whatever the big story was. There wasn't, and I've discussed this with Brian Solomon on his, I believe we talked about it on his podcast as well. There was less stories. The only stories that they really had were the angles, you know what I mean, that were basically for the main eventers in a way. It wasn't as, and a lot of the undercard guys didn't necessarily have stories that they were working. Now, and this is since the 1990s, probably late 1990s, every single wrestler on the card has a whole entire storyline that was going on. A lot of times you would go to a show back in the day, be 2 preliminary guys in the ring, and then they would just go up, and then there'd probably only be a couple of storylines or angles that drew you to the live event.
Very much so. You know what? As I'm listening to you talk about that, I think I've reached a opinion on what's going to happen in wrestling the next 2 years. I believe, first of all, I firmly believe, and this isn't political, folks. I don't do politics on the show. But if the economy sours the way it looks like it's going to, that a thing like this year's SummerSlam may be the last of its kind for a while, because the money will be a little bit tighter with a lot of wrestling fans. So I predict that as things get smaller, the overall product will get bigger, because I think more fans will have access to it. The prices will be lower. They'll play smaller venues and become every bit as popular, if not more so, because of the accessibility of being able to go. Because you know what? Wrestling fans have always been, a whole family will go, or, teenagers will go, or whoever it may be. More women go now than ever before. And I think more families of 4 and 5 go than I've ever seen in my life when you look at the crowd at any television taping. So I think that we're going to get past this point of the mega super, soon we'll have cards on Venus and Mercury too, just because it's like, well, if we can go there, we'll put wrestling there. But I think we're going to have to calm down a little bit on this stuff. And I think it's going to help grow the sport if they calm it down a little bit. It's, something, to be honest with you, even watching TV on a Monday night could be ear and eye jarring sometimes. The sound volume is always way up. There's never a minute of silence. Never a moment of silence in a wrestling card until the bell rings, and then everything finally gets quiet. It's so hype. I think they need to get smaller to get bigger, because, sometimes it's kind of uncomfortable to watch it. It's after 3 hours of noise and tumult, you're definitely ready to go to bed at 11 o'clock after Raw, I'll tell you that much. Do you think I'm onto something, or am I just spewing a bunch of babble? What do you think?
You're right. It's just, a lot of people sit there and watch TV or watch the wrestling live. There's no crowd reaction unless you're cutting a promo or something to that effect. When the matches are going on, when we were younger, if you remember watching old episodes of Worldwide, NWA Pro, stuff like that, crowds were going crazy. Watch WWE now. There's the promos that people are reacting with the boos, the ahs, the whatever. A lot of times when a match goes on and happens, people are just sitting on their hands and not reacting to the actual match unless there's a high spot, some sort of high spot. The 5 guys out of the ring brawling, and then the guy climbs to the top and then does a dive. So all 5 guys just so happen to be right in that same section, right at the same time in that corner, brawling. And then they all stop and they stare at him as he's climbing the rope. Instead of, let's get out of the way because this guy's going to dive, they just watch him climb up the ropes. It's just, wrestling is different than what we grew up with, for sure, because it was a lot more, to me, it was a lot more exciting back in the day. I mean, I'm not going to say that there's not exciting professional wrestling out there. There's definitely some good stuff. You just got to, there's so many different types of professional wrestling in 2025 that there's a flavor for everybody. It's not necessarily my flavor for a lot of things, but, and I'm sure with you as well, Bob, but there is a flavor for everybody.
But you know what? Let me play devil's advocate about one thing. I think fans react differently now. Like, how many times will we be watching Raw, SmackDown, and the "This is awesome" chant starts? If they've seen a match they're really getting into, that's usually after a series of matches. So rather than just going whoa or cheering, they start a chant now. Chants are big. I mean, the yeet and everything else, and "This is awesome," and you tapped out, and various other phrases. And the old Steve Austin,
the one where they would just chant "what" all the time when somebody's talking.
Yeah, what? Yeah, exactly. The Steve Austin "what" I mean, they just
let me ask you.
reactively, the fans want to be part of the show now as much as watching the show. That's a big difference in fan mores, so to speak.
Let me ask you that "This is awesome" chant is probably one of the most overused chants right now, because there's about 95% of the time I'm just like, this is pretty standard. There's really nothing awesome about it. So, I was like, this is pretty mundane and just, I don't know. It's like, it's not, and I'm going to use this reference. I use this reference when we and you were talking on my show. It's not Flair and Steamboat, Savage and Steamboat. It's not, I don't know, Dynamite and Tiger Mask, whatever you want to call it. There's certain matches, but it's just a lot of these matches are just, to me, they're good. They're just not awesome. You know what I mean? I don't think there's a lot of awesome professional wrestling. And this is just my personal opinion. Y'all could message me on social media if you differ. But
I don't. Here's the thing. I'm trying not to be super cynical to the point where I can't enjoy anything.
Yeah.
Once in a while, I agree with them when they chant, "This is awesome." There will be like a chain of events in a match that occur. They usually start chanting, "This is awesome" when everybody's prone on the mat after a bunch of big moves. Like everybody's down. And as they're struggling to get up, they're selling the maneuvers. That's when the "This is awesome" chant will start. I don't know. That doesn't bother me. But you're disagreeing with what is awesome and what is not awesome when it comes to something that's,
it's just like, I mean, I guess it could all be personal preference. It's just confusing to me that when I think something's awesome, it's just Tully Blanchard and Magnum TA. That to me, Steel Cage. That to me is awesome, as opposed to, I don't know, New Day War Raiders or whoever. I can't think of anybody that they were chanting "This is awesome" for, because it's
You know what I thought an awesome moment in wrestling is, and probably nobody else that ever thought about it ever thinks about it this way, but it's the Showboat in Atlantic City, the AWA. It's the Midnight Rockers versus Rose and Summers for the title. And there's a moment in that famous TV bloody match where Sherry is on the apron, and both Michaels and Jannetty look like they're going to go after her, and the place is going berserk. The heat, the paint is melting off the walls. Thinking, are they gonna hit her? Are they really gonna do something? Or they're thinking, get her, because she'd been interfering with the match. I am telling you, that's old school heat. Nothing even had to have happened. They had the crowd in the palm of their hands. Those four workers and Sherry Martel, who was being a real BI, the rest of the word, she was really just being an annoyance. And the heat was just, it wasn't a planned thing. And they weren't chanting. The roar of "get her" or "stop her" or whatever they were thinking was palatable. You could feel it all the way from the Showboat in Atlantic City as you're watching in your easy chair at home on ESPN. I'm telling you, those are the moments that I find it hard to describe, yet I want to go back and watch them again and again, because that's greatness you don't expect, and that's the best kind.
I watched that recently, and probably within the last or 6 months, probably. And I got to tell you, I think it popped up somewhere, and I can't necessarily remember where, but it popped up somewhere, and I watched it, and I got to tell you, that match is just phenomenal, because it's the reactions that are just insane. Crowd's going crazy the whole time. I believe it was Shawn Michaels that was a bloody mess throughout the whole thing, if I remember correctly. And it was just, it's like those old school heel managers like Sherry Martel was getting the reaction that she was getting. Nobody gets that kind of reaction these days. And at that time period, the AWA was kind of not necessarily doing fantastic. They only had a few years left in their existence. And that has to be one of the most, like, the shining moments in the later period of the AWA.
And I'll tell you what. First of all, I was shocked at how busy the arena looked. Or it's actually a big ballroom. I said what I think that was.
Right.
The ballroom at the Showboat. I keep saying it like Ron Trongard. But I will say too that the promo after the commercial break. There's a promo after the commercial break. Even though Michaels was the really bloody one, I think they dropped Jannetty on a chair, like in his rib cage, and that was the big moment that's kind of stopped the match, because he was really, it looked like he really got hurt, and so they're leaving, looking very, very hurt. And who comes to the mic but Greg Gagne? Right, this is after the commercial break. Who gave the greatest promo I've ever heard him give? The greatest. He goes, he looked angry. He looked upset, Greg did. And he was I never saw him give an emotional promo. Here's Greg Gagne with his finger pointing toward the camera going, you know what? If these guys are hurt, as they look like, it's either going to be me and whoever and Wahoo and whoever. I am telling you, the whole AWA is coming after you, Rose and Summers. And it looked sincere. It looked off the cuff. It looked real.
And he wasn't necessarily...
They don't do it that way anymore.
He wasn't necessarily an emotional promo guy. You know what I mean?
No, not at all.
He was very bland a lot of times. Not that he was bad, but, he was very just plain and went out there, said what he had to say, and then left a lot of times. And, it was a very emotional speech at that time. It was very good at that time period. I thought that was one of the better promos that Greg Gagne has cut.
Ever did.
Yeah.
If I ever get a chance to talk to him, I'm going to bring that up because it's like he brought it all home. He looked furious and upset. He looked like he was concerned for the two Midnight Rockers, and he also looked like he was furious that they would stoop to these lengths to do what they did to the Rockers. Rose and Summers. Doug Summers used to be a referee. Doug Summers, who made a new career for himself by dyeing his hair blonde and teaming up with Buddy Rose.
Hey boy, Buddy Rose.
It was like I was rooting for Doug Summers because I knew his past. He had been kind of a preliminary guy. So to see him elevated to the point where he made it, and then he really wasn't bad in the role, and he was great in that match. First of all, they were all bathed in sweat, too. Did you notice that? It must have been really hot in there.
Oh, yeah.
They were all bloody and sweaty, and they were just going at it tooth and nail, and guys were flying over the ropes, and one of the best TV matches I've ever seen, and I don't care what anybody has to say. I'm saying best from my standpoint, my sensibility. Certainly made you want to tune in the next week, I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely. And and I'm not saying anything bad about the AWA, but they didn't have a lot of that at that time period. You know what I mean? It was, I think they would shut their doors in 3 years after that. And, they were losing talent left and right. Vince was cherry picking all the top guys. And like I said, it was one of the greatest moments in the last few years of the AWA. And it sticks out as part of one of probably just that. And I could go back and watch that at any time because it's just so good. I think that is up on Peacock if I'm correct.
I have seen it. I just don't remember where. But I will say this: there were some moments all people did in that time frame, because that was when the magazines was complaining about how bad the AWA show is. You know what? You go back in time now and you look at those showboat shows, and then you go to the WWE syndicated shows with Matilda the Bulldog and Jake the Snake and all this other silliness, and they were complaining about the AWA. What? Who? Please, children, please. But I can remember other great matches. The hour-long draw between Hennig and Bockwinkel for the title. How about that one?
Oh,
remember that one?
Another one. Yeah. That's another thing I saw recently. I think it popped up on YouTube, my YouTube feed, so I watched it. Those two just put on a great series, and that match right there is probably the best of the series. Kurt was probably peak top of his game before he went to WWE there. Not that his WWE career was bad at all, because it wasn't. He had a phenomenal career there, but him versus Bockwinkel was a true professional and was just a phenomenal professional. He could work with anybody. Actually, I think both of these guys can go out there and work with anybody. And, they just put on a fantastic matchup.
And Bockwinkel was in his 50s.
Yes.
I mean, astounding. He was.
I find it crazy that he was that old.
Yeah.
Sorry about.
Yeah, I mean, nobody knew it because he looked like he was 35. That's the thing. He always looked the same. Great physique, just a really handsome guy. And there's other AWA matches that were really, really good. There was also the moment where Bockwinkel turned heel, and he turned heel because Larry Zbyszko hit him with nunchucks.
I remember that, yeah.
Following a match with Greg Gagne, and he had knocked out Gagne with the nunchucks, and Bockwinkel, who was his partner at that point, runs to the ring and goes, "You can't be doing this. You're getting disqualified." And he blasts Bockwinkel too. And another great TV moment, a good mini angle that my dear beloved father believed. I came over to visit him, and he was talking about my father grew up on Vern Gagne in the 50s, right? So by the time this show was on, he was watching it because Greg Gagne was in the match. He said, "Oh my God, Vern Gagne has a son that wrestles." And he started to get into it. and he bought that whole angle where he slammed. Plus, you could see when Zbyszko hit Bakaway with a nunchuck, a piece of him flew off across the ring.
Yep.
So it looked really good. And I don't want nobody tell me how bad the AWA was.
No.
It was something else. You can call it something else, but it wasn't bad.
It was like I said before, it's like there's different flavors for different people. The AWA, they had a lot of just pure professional wrestling, and it was great. There wasn't a lot of gimmicks. Vern didn't like a lot of gimmicks. You know what I mean? He certainly didn't like music. I heard at one point there was something I heard that he didn't want. He didn't want any rock and roll played during introductions. When they started adding music, and I just thought that was kind of funny, and it just kind of showed how truly old he was and out of date. And that's during that last period. I want to ask you one question. Sure.
No, before you do that, you talk about the music. What about that silly rap music video they made with the Road Warriors and everybody else a couple years before that?
Yeah, I know. And he started
it was based
Rumble?
off the Super Bowl Shuffle, the Wrestle Rock Rumble. That's right.
Yeah. He started to ease up, I think, toward after a while. But I mean, that Wrestle Rock Rumble is going to be one of my favorite wrestling songs because every now and again I'll watch it. If you need a good laugh, people go to YouTube and watch it if you've never seen it before because it's a
so
blast.
tremendous.
It's funny.
It's so tremendously awful that it's great. Honestly, it's really bad. It makes it art. I'm telling you, you got to see it.
So speaking of that, did you ever see the ICW rap song?
What?
Yes, I'm not lying. Came across this recently on the Savoldi YouTube channel because they upload little tidbits here and there, stuff that's not necessarily on the Classic Wrestling Network. I never seen this before. Bob, you're in for a treat if you ever find it. It's a great, it's a good rap there. Seriously.
Wait a minute. So what is it? You got to be a little more explicit about what's on it.
It's just a rap. It's got highlights. It's just some sort of wrestling rap tune. I discovered this probably last week or the week before, and it's just it's pretty hideous. I was looking for something else that came up, and I was going to include it in an episode sometime in the near future, and honestly, I couldn't even make it all the way through the song. It was that damn hideous. Seriously. So I'm going to send it to you when we're done here tonight.
So in other words, it's one of those things that's so bad I have to see it. That's what you're telling me.
Yes, absolutely.
You mean the promotion that featured Curly Bo did something that's bad?
100%. Yeah, they've done some questionable things in the in their day, but
listen.
But
before you say it, I give the Savoltis all the credit because
Absolutely.
At a time when wrestling was getting extreme, like the early ECW and other stuff, the IWCCW was a place you could bring your kids.
Yes.
And see old school flavor wrestling and in a lot of the same arenas that the WWF had used to use, the smaller ones. So no, I kind of like the promotional style. I kind of gave them credit for saying, listen, we're going to keep it on the more mild side. Yes, there'll be heels, there'll be foreign objects, and there'll be dirty wrestling, but there wasn't going to be excessive blood use. There wasn't going to be, because they went into places and the communities got involved, so I give them credit for being smaller and trying to keep, and knowing that because they were going to be smaller, you had to attract a family audience, so you're going to die. You would die. You would not draw. So they got wrestlers who were in between contracts with, other organizations, the headline, and they brought in their own young talent. And for a while, it worked like gangbusters. So I think they did the best with what they had, and they survived a lot longer than a lot of people in the territory days did. So I just got to give them their props for that.
I love that television program. I got it on a small UHF channel. I mean, at one point it was on Sports Channel America. It bounced television networks. And then the last few years that it existed, I got on a small UHF television station out of West Haven, Connecticut. That doesn't exist anymore. And it was awesome. Like, it wasn't the great ICW that it was in the 80s and up until like the early 90s. It was IWCCW, family friendly. They were bringing in new talent, but so many people got their start there in that time period. Guys like Bubba Ray Dudley, Bill DeMott was there. there was a lot of other guys that got their start there before making it to, say, WCW and WWF.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And, I've grown to really like the brain trust and the people in the Savoldi's who I got to know. And I just saw them about a year ago. And now I'm actually proud to have been on their show about a dozen times. I just think it was a real honor for me to stand in the same spot where Vince McMahon stood and did interviews with wrestlers just like he did. That very same spot in that arena. And I just, I thought, while I was doing it, I was thinking of the history that was in that building. I think it was, this is Hamburg. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is stuff mere mortals don't get the opportunity to do. I was standing in the same spot that McMahon used to stand interviewing Tony Atlas, just like he used to. That ain't bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
No.
kind of cool. I really enjoyed that. So hats off to the IWCCW or ICW or the Savoldi family promotion because it was cool. And you're a cool cat too, my friend. I'm so glad you took the time to be with us tonight.
I
Please
appreciate
tell
it.
people where they can find you and all that other good stuff.
Well, you can find me on Twitter, X, whatever you call it these days.
X.
And Instagram at the Rick Del Santo, all one word. I'm on Blue Sky. Just look up my name. The user handles are too long for me to repeat. But Facebook, just
Yeah, that
they
is
kinda
the
come up
problem
with
with
something
Blue Sky,
else.
by the way.
Yeah.
That's the problem with Blue Sky. It's like your name at blah blah dot something else dot. It's too long. You're right. It should be this and that.
It could be a good platform. I don't see a lot of action on there really. But look me up on there. I'm trying to build my audience there. Of course, you could always send me a friend request on Facebook. I use Facebook quite a bit, especially during my working hours when I'm bored. So that's pretty much it.
Easy to find Rick Del Santo, a real wrestling maven and a good friend. And we may be seeing each other later this year. We talked about going to the International Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame in Albany for their annual awards ceremony in October. And you're making your plans. You've already made your plans. Now I have to make my plans. And I intend to be there because I know Mr. Apter is going to be there again this year. And it should be a stone cold blast. And I will recommend it to everybody listening. If you're in the East Coast or you just want to make a nice vacation and see some real big professional wrestling stars up close, come to the International Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. And the Hall of Fame itself is pretty ginchy. And I think once you see that, Rick, you're going to be really impressed with the actual Hall of Fame that's located inside the arena in Albany. So it's going to be a gas. So there's an early commercial for that. And then we just did a little commercial for you. And again, I just want to say thank you, man. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks, Bob. I appreciate it.
Attention, Gen Xers. If you'd like to explore the era that appeals to you, look no further than GenerationXWire.com. The generation who grew up with elite in entertainment, music, movies, TV, books, pro wrestling, and more finally has a one-stop destination for all their Gen X needs. From Aerosmith to Batman to the Killer Bees to the Twilight Zone, there's something for everybody at GenerationXWire.com. You won't find a more eclectic mix of pop culture content than at the leading website that specializes in the greatest generation, GenerationXWire.com. Check it out today. Well, there's our show. I hope you really enjoyed it. Now it's time for our usual commercial announcements. Our website is outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com, where you can find all of our shows. Bing, bang, boom. You don't need an app. You can listen to them right there. But we are also available wherever podcasts are streamed. Write to us at outdatedwrestling@gmail.com. We get a lot of interesting letters like I got recently that I read on the show, a couple of them. So you may be next. And if you go on that website, outdatedwrestlinghour.buzzsprout.com, you can hear about the Outdated Wrestling Hour fan club for a nominal fee. Just a couple of bucks. You can help with the perpetuation of the show, and you really do. And I want to thank, once again, all of our members. They're fantastic. We love you. Just keeping the show going. It allowed me to start our second podcast, the Outdated Entertainment Hour. Wearing me out, but we're gonna have a blast. Find me on Facebook. I'm the guy singing with Baby King. Find me on Twitter if you so choose. I'm easier to find on Facebook. I should do more on Twitter, but ugh. In any event, that's our show this time. I'm telling you, we're just getting started. This is Bob Smith. This is the Outdated Wrestling Hour. Be good to each other, man. Seriously.